it's important to recognize the importance of why pronouns are relevant to the community. Um, I always say that we always have an understanding or a stereotype of what a trans person looks like. Um, and we may want to ask the questions for folks who appear trans. But in reality, you never know who is trans until they tell you. You may already have trans neighbors, trans coworkers, people in your city, your knitting club, at the gym. You may already be interacting with trans people in many spaces, and you may not even realize it, because trans people come in different stages of the transition. Some people haven't started transitioning, but are exploring that gender identity for themselves. And some people have transitioned long, long ago. They're already living 10 plus years, that's their true gender, and have reached a point in their transition where they're essentially undetectable, or they're what we say in the community, operating as stealth, where no one would assume that they're transgender. This is a conversation that it's important to recognize that you can't just ask individuals who you think are trans for their pronouns. In fact, I encourage you to ask about pronouns and talk about pronouns with everyone you meet, including the folks who may not be transgender. That's part of the culture shift we want to invite people to support us with in adopting pronouns into your email signatures, into your name in Zoom, into your Instagram, into other platforms where pronouns are available. And if there is a platform that doesn't have pronouns, see if you can ask the organizers to see if they can include pronouns. We need more people talking about pronouns so that way we can help normalize this conversation. Now, the reason why we want to talk about pronouns so much so is because if we create an environment where we're constantly asking, communicating, disclosing pronouns, it suddenly becomes more of a cultural norm. Everyone's asking for pronouns, everyone's communicating about pronouns, and we stop assuming pronouns. Assuming is one of the biggest components to be able to make a mistake. The moment someone assumes based off external appearance, an assignment of a pronoun, that's where people may be outed, maybe confronted, maybe put at risk for safety as a visibly non-conforming transgender individual. People, maybe they don't know, or maybe they just are not used to practicing, but people will assign me different pronouns based off how they perceive me or code me at a given day. And while it doesn't necessarily upset or bother me, it can get under your skin if it happens over and over. And for some people, it's a life and death situation. And so that's why it's so important to be aware that pronouns are important to the community. And you also have a role as an ally to be able to make those conversations more organic and natural. And so you may be thinking, well, how do I bring this up? How do I talk about pronouns with my family, my friends, my peers, my coworkers at school? And if you're looking to understand of how you can introduce that, I would recommend by putting it into your introduction. Or as I like to say, coming out as an ally, coming out as a member of the community. When you come out or when you disclose your pronouns as in your introduction, you are giving folks a subtle, very subtle, very verbal cue of, I understand that pronouns are important, and I want to make sure that people are aware that you can tell me about your pronouns as well. And so I'll give you an example. Here we have a format of how someone may want to introduce themselves. I might say that, hi, my name is Jane Doe. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the CEO of a certain company. Or, hi, my name is John Doe. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a student at X college. So these are examples of how folks will use their name, their pronouns, their introduction. If they want to disclose their role, it's not absolutely necessary. But what I want to strongly encourage is name pronouns in every introduction. And then in turn, you ask the person in front of you, regardless of whether they look trans or not, or whether they look like they're part of the community or not, you can never know. You can never assume. And so ask the person before you, hi, what is your name? What are your pronouns, after you disclose yours. And so when you say yours first, and then in turn ask the other person with that verbal cue, if it's someone in the community, they may feel more comfortable and say, hey, thanks for asking. I use they, them pronouns, or I use these are pronouns. And then they may share more about themselves and their journey with gender. Or you may interact with folks who've never heard of pronouns, and that's a totally normal response too. You may get folks that say, what do you mean pronouns? I've never heard about that before. What are you talking about? And that invites you as an ally to help educate others on our behalf. I can't stress enough that trans people, when we're operating in our day-to-day lives, we're constantly educating our teachers, our doctors, our peers, our coworkers, our managers about our experiences. And so this burden is for some people very exhausting, and we can't do it alone. So we need your help in starting those conversations and sharing them with your folks who are in your network, to help send the message that now is the time to include pronouns in the cultural norm and make them part of our environment, our society.